Innovation Interview focuses on students and scholars who are making a great impact on cryptocurrency and blockchain and Web3 adoption.
Saw all these cartoon characters posting charts. I was like, I can learn how to do this. So I taught myself how to trade, and
This has to do a lot with technology actually not working for people.
Well, welcome everyone to Innovation Interview at the UC CryptoEconomics Lab. Today we are honoring women in crypto, and we have a wonderful panel today with us. We have Eisha, Stacey, Emilee, Susan, and myself. My name is Sunshine, and I'm your host today in the CryptoEconomics Lab. Eisha, start with us and tell us about yourself.
Yes, so Eisha Herrmann, I'm a graduate of the University of Cincinnati and longtime supporter of the Bearcats. My degree is in information systems, and I fell into the Web3 blockchain space, organically working in supply chain. I was helping clients to understand how they could better get a competitive edge, and one of the ways to do that was through blockchain technology. So I'm super passionate about the space. I feel like education and understanding is, a key to equity among everyone, and I hope that you enjoy our discussion today.
And Stacey is on a phone call. She will be joining us shortly, so we will do her last.
I'm Emilee LaReeda. I'm from University of Cincinnati, and I'm currently working at the CryptoEconomics Lab at the Digital Futures Building, and I'm studying blockchain technology with that.
And I'm Stephan. I have been an attorney for a little more than 30 years, and I now focus on legal education. I teach law and regulation of blockchain technology and some other technology law-related courses to law students and undergraduates and master's students as well. And I'm really excited about the possibilities of the law and regulation in this space, and excited to talk a little bit more about that today.
Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm sure we will have some fascinating discussions. First topic, though, starting with you, Eisha, what does decentralized mean to you, and what background or story has helped you relate to or consider a story to centralized?
Yeah, so decentralized to me means that you are in control, so you have ownership of your assets, your own things. So a story that has helped me kind of form this narrative in my own mind would be simply, if I think about real estate, right? So if I have my own real estate company, so when I think about that, everything that I need to purchase in real estate goes through something centralized, either a mortgage broker, a deed attorney, the filing in the state. So somebody is controlling all of those assets. Somebody is responsible for ensuring that they're filed, that they're accurate, and I generally don't have complete access to that. So that to me is centralized. Decentralized would mean that I'm empowered to have all of that access to the information, to the data, to the sale, all at my fingertips at all of the time, instead of having somebody else control that.
That's a really good example. How do you feel about it currently, it being centralized and you not able to control it?
It's a little challenging. So I think, what blockchain technology and Web3 allows is for equity. So currently, if I want to purchase a home, I either have to have, a certain credit score or enough collateral. There's a lot of barriers to entry to get into the market to even purchase a home. And I think everyone's experiencing that now with the interest rate hikes and inflation. Having a decentralized space makes it a lot easier, meaning that I could put a home for sale and have a neighborhood buy it if, for instance, I wasn't able to pay for it anymore, and they could all own shares in my house without having to go through a centralized bank. So for me, it allows for those who otherwise would not be able to invest or not be able to be home ownerships other avenues for achieving their own goals and dreams.
Yeah, it sounds like it really just opens up an even playing field for everyone to participate.
Yes, absolutely.
Emilee, can you give an example of decentralized and kind of what your overall impression is?
Well, what decentralization means to me is that people are finally in charge again. It's really easy to look at big corporations and big governments and see how the little person doesn't have a voice, and blockchain technology can completely disrupt that. So I'm really excited to see what the future holds with it.
Fantastic. I agree with both those characterizations. And from my perspective, from the legal perspective, decentralization really means the lack of an intermediary such that you really don't have someone you can regulate as easily, right? So it's exciting and challenging to, again, put the control in the hands of the individual. It doesn't have to be a big corporation, but then we're struggling legally with how do we regulate when we don't even know. Maybe someone using blockchain technology might be pseudonymous and anonymous opportunity. It's harder to actually see which individuals are behind whatever the transaction is. So it's exciting to see how the law is going to handle that. So I think that's one of the most interesting. Without an intermediary, of course, the intermediaries are the ones who now are being tagged with the control. It's the exchanges and wallets and the aspects of blockchain technology that really are more centralized to help individuals interface that are the first to be regulated. So I'm excited to see the future where we have a lot more control out of the hands of intermediaries and really fully utilize Web3 and blockchain technology to empower each individual.
So it sounds like we could actually have a choice. If we want to do centralized for some areas, then we can, but we also have that decentralized area where we can make our own decisions.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Well, I would like to welcome someone else to our panel, Stacey. She was on a phone call, but she is here. We are happy to have you, Stacey.
And I'm sorry
Welcome.
I missed that. Because
That is
I think
okay.
There was an
That's
interesting component to the call. I was just
Stacey,
on.
if you could just give us an introduction, tell us about yourself.
Okay, I'm Stacey Strasser. I am all in on crypto and blockchain and have been for about 6 years now. I come from a technology background in systems integration and automation, and of course fell in love with blockchain as a technology and a powerful tool for automation. And so I started to look into it, and the next thing you know, I was in GP in a crypto fund, and then we spun up a second crypto fund, and then I'm a founding investor in a blockchain company, which is tokenizing securities and taking them to the secondary market for trading. So that's me.
And just to add on, I don't want you to miss this question because I think it's an important one. What does decentralized mean to you? Can you give us an example or maybe a background, a story that has kind of helped you relate to decentralized versus centralized?
Yeah, I mean, decentralized means a lot of different things in a lot of different industries, and blockchain touches all of them. So it's hard to just, isolate it into some philosophical something. But for me and what we're doing, like with tokenizing securities in a regulatory and compliant manner, the company 10XTS that I was invested in from the get-go, we have a layer 1 blockchain, and it's the decentralization of information that allows the interoperability of the data between all parties so that the regulatory compliance data can go with the asset as it moves throughout the system, from the issuer to the broker to the ATS to the custodian, whichever component it's not component, but whichever step it's in, right? The data will go along with it. And so to me, that is, previous to a blockchain being in that process, you have all these separate entities that are operating with their isolated systems. And that data is in each person's disparate system that's not interconnected. And I, as a consumer of, or a holder of an asset, would have to go and ask for that data, right, from each one of those parties, and then facilitate the transfer of that data to validate whatever it was that I want it to do, right? And so that makes a very cumbersome process. And so decentralization to me is being able to say, I own this asset, and the data with that asset is owned by me, and I can provision that data to go wherever I need it to go to do whatever I want to do with my asset. So
Yeah,
that to me
that's a good
gives
example.
a lot of control to the consumer versus, me having to ask permission and wait on Judy to get in the system to get me an email, and maybe she'll fax it to me, and I don't have a fax machine. There's just, it's amazing, right, what blockchain's going to do. But in my world, I've been in this tunnel of digitizing securities, and not just only digitizing the securities, but ensuring that there's interoperability and fractionalization capabilities in those securities. Yeah.
Well, very good response. It sounds like that can definitely be frustrating and definitely a need for the future.
Well, I love that people get to own their own data for once, right? So like even now a bank owns your data about what you do every single day with your money. And to me, I should own my data. I can't even search it up until a couple years ago.
Yeah, very true. Well, moving on, Emilee, this question is for you. Can you explain what a DAO is and how you can use it?
So you can think of a DAO as like a group chat with a bank account. So it stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization, which means it's structured just like any other organization, but the positions within are voted on by anybody who's within the organization. So that means you can assign certain amounts of voting tokens towards decisions. And how else would I explain it?
How would you use it? How can you see that? It is complex, and I imagine the DAO has different tokenomics, so it's really hard to be really descriptive on how you do it.
You can see DAOs.
How you could use it.
Yeah, you can see DAOs all across the space, anywhere from purchasing land to art collectives who are saving up or trying to purchase pieces of a famous artist that they like.
There's a group that just formed a DAO to purchase a replica of the Constitution.
Yeah.
So,
really?
That's one. Or, there are actual DAOs out there where communities are buying land within their property and they're deciding what to do with it as for green space or to clean it up for a community center. So there's a lot of different types of applications in which everyone's kind of an owner and they have an input to what happens.
So it's a smart contract, right? It's a smart contract.
Previous to that, you could never own a piece of the Constitution or whatever it is that you wanted to own.
Yeah, right.
Much less have a say-so in how it would be handled or what you would do with that investment.
Exactly. And then the smart contract functionality actually gives everyone the say-so so that voting can take place and the result will happen based on the coding, and that's exciting.
I love the democratization of that.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to ask if you would correlate that to what we sometimes know in investing as an operating agreement. Sometimes I think it's really easy for us to correlate light things with light things that we know. Would you akin it?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It really is like an operating agreement in a traditional corporate environment, but in a decentralized manner such that everything is built in and is going to function as soon as the input is given. So you don't rely on an individual or a corporate board to suddenly, fill out the final paperwork and make the decisions. It's something that everybody has a voice and voting can take place. And then when the votes are collected, say if it is, or the purchase is decided on, it will just be accomplished algorithmically and anonymous as well. So you don't have to worry about anybody tipping the scales or, the whole oversight becomes a little less necessary because it is such an environment that really is
not to mention the payments too. So you have your payments are built in, so it does everything for you. So it's the convenience of it as well. I can think of a lot of examples where that would really benefit a lot of people.
It's exciting.
Yeah, I think it'll really be useful for art collectives and just groups of artists in general because there's a lot of trust within that industry to begin with. So if you're able to put these payments on smart contracts or anything of that sort, you're able to just open more opportunities for these people to create things that they couldn't have done before.
And validate their ownership.
Yeah.
Which then continues to reap profits down the stream. I mean, if somebody takes something that you used or created in photos or something, it's tagged and you can be paid without even knowing that, without even marketing that or going through the third party and making sure that you get paid immediately.
And as a creator myself, I am so excited to actually be able to track those streams instead of just putting it on the internet and it's out there for anyone to copy.
So I do think that the technology is different than what we're used to in our current environment. So it allows for, automatic payments of, say, utilities by the day or by the hour, or rent by the day or by the hour, or contract work by the hour, just based on the smart contract technology. But it also allows for that immutable record, which is helpful to artists for both of the ways that the technology functions that we don't have today, or that we don't utilize today. It's available today, but we're not really utilizing it in the way that it could be.
And it keeps the data along. So like if your art becomes more valuable over time, now you have a validated history, an immutable history that goes with that art about what happened to it and how it increased in value over time, which
Exactly. And the immutable ledger really lets you keep track of, we don't, as you said, the technology's there, we don't utilize it as much for things like copyright interests and keeping track of in a public immutable ledger, copyright ownership, and certainly the functionality of a smart contract being able to distribute royalties, for instance, every time that a copyrighted work is transferred. And so there's so many exciting opportunities that we've really just scratched the surface. So there have been a few examples of artists trying to capitalize that way and being somewhat successful, but we have so much more possibility out there.
Absolutely.
So Stacey, this question is for you. Besides NFTs, what can blockchain tech do for just any kind of general facility or practice of business? You're kind of doing it now in your business, but there's so many use cases. Is there something that you can think of or that you've thought of in the back of your head that you're like, this block new or old or?
I really like it. I'm not an artist. I appreciate art very much, and I think artists are underappreciated in every way, and they've gotten really the short end of every stick as far as how much money they get at the end of the day. I mean, when you look at like iTunes, they're taking a large portion of the money, and the artist at the end of the day gets very little by the time, and it's how many days to settle by the time it goes from iTunes to the music artist agent to the next bank account to the next bank account. Everybody scrapes it along the way, and it takes forever. So I mean, to me, I feel like it's areas like that are going to make the biggest impact. I also really like, the underbanked. Banks right now have a tremendous amount of control, and globally, there's just a lack of capital in poor nations. There's highly motivated people that we can now get capital to in a different way with microloans. That is just phenomenal. Like I can choose to invest in somebody in an impoverished nation that otherwise would not have access to capital. To create a business and to grow an economy that doesn't exist. And that excites me. There's a lot of social justice causes that I think this really is a game changer for. So those are the things those are way more exciting than digitizing securities. Okay.
Yeah. Those are
I didn't say that. Cut. No.
I mean, that's impacting humanity and a positive outlook. It really is.
And I mean, what we're doing right now with digitizing securities, it creates a similar situation, right? Because you can have fractionalized ownership down way. Like, right now, if I wanted to invest I live in Mason, Ohio, it's a great place to invest. I don't have the ability to buy just a couple $1,000s of real estate in Mason, Ohio. If I'm not an accredited investor, all bets are off the table right now. I have no access to any kind of real estate investment unless I'm buying the house and it's on my, dime, right? In the future, I think once all of real estate is tokenized, the fractionalization capability, like if my neighbor decides they want to get a home equity line, right now they have to go to the bank, knock on the bank's door, fill out the paperwork, and the bank will decide if they are allowed to have some of their equity. In the future, if that house is tokenized, then they might say, hey, I'm going to put this out to a secondary market, and I, as a neighbor and peer and friend, can say, oh, I've been looking to pick up a couple $1,000s extra of Mason real estate, and there is a peer-to-peer transaction that can take place in a fully regulatory compliant manner that allows me to basically give that person directly the loan, and I in return get a fractionalized ownership in their asset,
and
which
you can sell it at any time without going through somebody else.
Exactly, and I don't have to ask permission. They don't have to ask permission, and all of that still can be regulatory and compliant.
So would you say, for those that might not know, that a token is a way to show ownership of an asset,
yes,
and that it has smart rules built into it based on what you're allowed to do with that token and what it represents?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, and that's kind of like, in the vision that we had with 10xTS, creating the governance, risk, and compliance layer is about taking all the documents that enumerate that asset and validate that asset as the asset that it is, and all the legal contracts signed around that asset to be in one centralized place to be provisioned to be able to move that around. I mean, that's amazing, right? We don't have that right now. All of this doesn't exist, and it's going to really bring a lot of opportunity for a lot of people, not just your neighbor who wants to make an extra bit of money in the real estate market in Mason.
Yeah. Well, I always say one of the reasons why I got into cryptocurrency was there's a lot of problems in the world that blockchain can solve. And I'm in healthcare, and professionally what I see is just one problem, for example, is we have scrubs that we go up to the scrub desk, get scrubs, and then there's a basket down the hall that says drop your scrubs in here. Do you think anybody drops their scrubs in there?
Yeah.
Hospital ran out of scrubs 3 months ago. What does that tell you? All you need to do is tokenize it, right?
Yeah.
If you tokenize it, you give everybody 10 tokens for they're going to return it, right? That's incentive to get that token. So that's just something easy that I've always thought of, like, that's a really easy problem to fix. So
yeah, there's so much opportunity in this space, right?
Yeah.
Which is why we need more people like yourself to get blockchain certificates and educations to dream up the answers, because the technology allows for a lot of problem solving, automation, and democracy.
yes.
I think just more creative thinkers in general, because for so long it's been hidden in this like finance world when the technology can solve so much more than just corruption in banks. So I'd like to see how much further we can take
Very
it.
well said. Very well said.
Yes.
So Susan, I have a question for you. I think we're dying to know. Is computer code law? Is smart contracts, are they law? Like currently, what are we trying to figure out?
Well, that's a great question. And there is absolutely a concept of code as law, because code, like law, can certainly influence what happens, right? Code, once it's programmed, is going to accomplish whatever the goal was, whether or not it is actually a legal outcome or something that is even legally enforceable. But the idea of code as law and the idea of it being kind of a form of architecture that is one of the things that influences our behavior, or certainly the results we see, I think is really an interesting one. As far as a smart contract actually being like a contract or like a legal contract, I would say absolutely not necessarily. It can be part of a legal contract. If you have a natural language written contract that not only contemplates whatever the agreement is between or among parties, but it can also incorporate a smart contract functionality, such that I agree to sell to you my piece of art, let's say, for a certain amount of, certain price, as long as maybe, or maybe on a certain date. And then you can have the agreement, and then you can have a smart contract when that date arrives, function so that the transfer of money is accomplished through, automatically, right? So smart code, autonomous code can certainly support a legal agreement, but smart contract itself is rarely going to be seen as a legal agreement. It's difficult to enforce. And sometimes, again, the parties might be pseudonymous or anonymous. You might not know who is on the other end of a transaction, such that if there's a problem with the transaction, maybe the art you're going to sell it turns out it's not genuine, or it was damaged, or it didn't really arrive. You'll have with the smart contract, of course, an if-then proposition. So if this happens, then, if X, then Y. But there are a lot of things that could go wrong that you wouldn't be able to stop the functioning of the contract. So really, code certainly can function as law in that, how it's programmed is what the result will be.
But it's who enforces the other things that
exactly. Exactly.
Right now,
it's very mucky. It's very mucky, right? And and the courts are really struggling. One of the biggest cases discussing smart contract functionality and what happens if the transaction goes wrong is in Singapore, because we haven't, we're here in the U.S. We've really seen very little, certainly nothing yet at the Supreme Court level, and very little that addresses some of these complicated issues. And how are we going to deal with this kind of agreement if it incorporates some automatic or autonomous functionality?
A little bit of that even in just like supply chain blockchain, right? If I am sourcing from a particular area, maybe within the blockchain data, I put in where the farmer is, what pesticides were used with any, what the crop is, picture of the smiling farmer face, to travel all along with it to go to the freight forwarder, to the distributor, all the way to our local Kroger here. But if I say that there are oranges in the box, but there are really dates in the box, there's no one to fix that, right? So it carries along all the same data, but there still could be something that's wrong with it.
Yeah. That's a great point, both of you.
Yeah, that really is. I was thinking why not? And you explained that really well, because if you have an anonymous person, how do you enforce them if they're a bad actor?
I'm like, I hadn't thought about that.
How do you go after? So,
although you could set it to not allow the execution of the contract unless it was a validated identity.
Right.
Especially if it's security.
You definitely could control it more, the more inputs, the more third-party verifications, whatever your Oracle is, whoever it is, whatever data you're relying on.
People complain it's more centralized then, because
absolutely
they don't want their identity, because then you can track their wallets, and then you know the person's account. So that's a hard one, because everyone feels differently about the situation. Yeah, being able to please everyone.
It's somewhere in the middle.
Right. That's always the answer, right? Yeah. It depends. Somewhere in the middle.